In this video, let's talk about 6 Ubiquiti UniFi PoE switches. They are not rack mount. Compared with their rack mount counterparts, they are smaller, portable, and with less parts. Of course, they are cheaper as well. So in many scenarios, they are better choices than the rack mount ones. However, there are multiple different non-rack mount models from Ubiquiti. I happen to have these 6, so let's explore their differences in this video. In the right, the biggest one is the USW Enterprise 8-part PoE. The middle one, 16-part, light, and the cute one is my favorite, the USW-Flex. They are all in white color, the signature color for Gen 2 switches from Ubiquiti. In the left, I have 3 first-generation switches. This one, the biggest one, is the 150 watt 8-part. And in the middle, a odd one is 10 gigabit PoE++ switch. And the smallest one, 8-part PoE switch. But this one is not as powerful as this one. And you can see they are all in silver color, which implies they are all first generation switch. Don't take it for granted that generation 2 is better than generation 1 and those generation 1 switches are outdated. No. In fact, if you search Ubiquiti's online store, you will be surprised that all these Gen 1 switches, they are still being sold because they don't really have replacement models from generation 2. We will discuss that later. People choose this type of switches instead of rack mount ones because they are not rack mount. Or to put it another way, because they are dimensions. So let's first compare their sizes. It's not really fair to just compare dimensions without talking about how they are powered, because the power supply is a major factor that impacts their sizes. For this small first generation 8-part switch, the first impression is very good. Metal enclosure, compact sizes, very light but not too light. However, it comes with a very chunky power brick, 60 watt, almost the same size as the switch itself. So this is the price you have to pay if you want to choose a mini size switch. For this a little bit strange 10 gigabit switch, its dimensions are weird. It's very flat and very wide. I don't understand why Ubiquiti made such weird choice when it comes to dimensions. To make it worse, this is its 210 watt power adapter. It's huge, flat, and wide. As strange as the switch. I also don't understand the color choice for the adapter. Because the switch is silver, the adapter is white. You won't believe they are designed to work together. In my opinion, this 150 watt first generation switch is the best looking one among the 6 switches. Its height is 1U. In fact, if you want, you can even mount it on rack because it does have built-in mount holes. Even though it doesn't have LCD screen as the Gen 2 switches, the left side button-like square make it looks much better. The best thing for this switch is it comes with internal power adapter. So you just need a normal power cord to power it. Finally, a first generation switch that doesn't require an ugly external power brick. Move on to the second generation switches. The Enterprise 8-part PoE switch is another nice looking one. You don't need an external power adapter. The color matched power cord is the only thing you need to power it. By the way, the design of the enclosure reminds me how I wash my clothes when I was a child. The second generation 16-part light PoE switch is a fat, chunky switch 1U high. I'm not a big fan of the design, but at least it comes with internal power supply unit, so you just need a power card. The USW-Flex is my favorite one. Just like the name implies, it's super flexible. Don't be fooled by its small size. It needs 60 watt to be powered. However, it doesn't have a USB port, also cannot be powered with external power brick. The only way is through this PoE in port. You need another PoE switch to power it or a PoE power adapter. Next, let's talk about their PoE power, which is one of the determining factors for their usage scenarios. These three monsters are very power hungry. This 10 gigabit switch can provide the highest power output, 170 watt, which makes sense because it supports PoE++. This first generation 8-port switch can output 130 watt, thanks to the fact that all the 8 RJ45 ports, they support PoE+. The other big guy is this enterprise switch, 120 watt. All the 8 PoE ports are PoE+. For these three relatively low power switches, this 16-port Gen 2 switch is very disappointing, because even though it has 16 port, it only has 45 watt PoE output, the lowest one among all the 6 switches we talked about in this video, even lower than this cute flex switch. But it does have 8 PoE plus ports, which means 30 watt times 8 at least, right? So the power output doesn't add up. We will talk about that later in the video. This smallest flex switch has 46 watt output. Very impressive. This 8-port Gen 1 switch only has 48 watt output, which is much lower than this 8-port, which is 130 watt. We will discuss why the huge differences. Now it's time to talk about their PoE ports, which may be the most important reason to decide which switch to buy. This 10 gigabit switch is the only one that supports PoE++, and all the 5 RJ45 ports, they support PoE++. The enterprise switch and the Gen 1 switch are very similar when it comes to PoE ports. They all have 8 PoE plus ports. For this seemingly very beefy 16-port switch, it's very weak on PoE output. It claims to support 8 PoE plus ports, but the total power output is only 45 watt, which means you even cannot power 2 real PoE plus devices at the same time. I believe that's why it has light in its model name. My favorite flex switch has 1 PoE++ port, but it's only for input. The other 4 ports are for output, and they are all PoE+. I have a whole bunch of them to power outdoor devices, and I cannot like them more. The last one, the Gen 1 8-port one, it has 8 ports, but only the last 4 they are PoE, not PoE+, just PoE, which makes its usage much limited. In the end, let's go through each of them, talk about in what scenarios you would choose which one and why. For this 60 watt Gen 1 switch, you want to buy it only if your budget is limited and you only have several low power PoE devices, and you want to take advantage of the 4 non-PoE ports. I have several of them just because several years ago I got great deals. I would not buy them at MSRP now. However, there's one point I want to mention about this switch, even though it does not have Pro in the model name because it's pretty old. It does support similar CLI as the much more expensive Pro switches. The 10 GB switch is the most unique one among the 6 switches. It has totally 7 10GBE ports. If you need PoE++ and you need higher than 1 gigabit switch, basically you don't have any other options from UniFi. This is the only one provided by UniFi. However, it's also very expensive. Due to its very limited usage, there have no similar switches in the UniFi Gen 2 product line. I really like this 150 watt 8-port Gen 1 switch. It looks nice, and all 8 ports, they are PoE+, very powerful. If you need a reliable workhorse, you may want to consider this one, even though it's just Gen 1 switch. The enterprise switch is very versatile. All the 8 RJ5 ports, they support 2.5 gigabit speed, and it has two 10 gigabit SFP plus ports. So even if you don't care about PoE, this switch may be a candidate in many scenarios already. SA plus, all the 8 ports, they are PoE plus. Another thing worth of mentioning is this is the only one in Pro or Enterprise product line in this video. It supports CLI commands as the rack mount counterparts. If you need official CLI support, it's your only choice. For the 16-port PoE switch, I cannot think of even one reason why you want to buy it. Maybe you only have only one PoE plus device and several other PoE devices, and you do want to use the remaining 8 ports which are not PoE, then you may want to consider this one. For this flex switch, thumb up. I strongly recommend it, especially for outdoor usage. Sorry for so many problems in the short 10 minutes video. I rarely shoot videos and talk at the same time. So thank you for watching to the end.